Just bringing it back to Australia, and this is why I think your book is extremely pertinent in Australia right now, and that is that we seem to be rewriting our history at the moment, and it's all within the context of this rather heated debate about whether or not to have a voice to Parliament. And this voice to Parliament, it's a panel of Indigenous representatives, and it's meant to right the wrongs that were supposedly perpetrated at the start of the settlement, white settlement. Now, I think, I'd like to get your opinion on this. I think for us to rewrite our history like that is not only inaccurate, it's actually unethical, because it is to deny some very disadvantaged people living in modern Australia the benefits of a Western liberal democratic society. We seem to be downgrading our own, what progress we've made in 235 years, and as a result condemning some seriously disadvantaged people to live in deprivation forever. Am I right? Is it unethical to deny the benefits of Western liberalism?
Yes, I think it is, and it's also unethical to develop any policy on the basis of a distorted reading of the past, which is certainly what's happening in Britain with the policies of decolonisation, a completely distorted caricature of the past. And whether in Canada or Australia, the clamour for Aboriginal communities to have some kind of autonomy within the state. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, Fred, but I've certainly read those who say that that is a policy that is destined to deepen the plight of Aboriginal peoples, because of it cuts them off from modern European civilization rather than enabling them to flourish within it. And of course, there are plenty of Aboriginal peoples in North America and Australia who have become fully integrated and do flourish. But those who linger, let's say, in reserves in North America, often suffer from political leadership that is corrupt, and suffer all sorts of deprivations because they are cut off from the mainstream. And the ideal within the empire, as I say, from North America to Australia and New Zealand, was always to enable Aboriginal peoples, native peoples, to assimilate and develop so that they would become equal citizens.
Indeed.
Not separate, but equal citizens in a common polity.
Indeed, and I'd argue that was always the intention from the moment they set foot on this continent. Now, in your book regarding Australia, the most detail you go into is the plight of the Tasmanian Aborigines in the so-called Black War of 1825 to 1832, in which somewhere between 400 and 1,000 Aborigines perished. Now, this is often portrayed as an attempt at genocide. What was your finding, Professor?
First of all, it is clear that colonial government was never responsible for anything like genocide. Quite the contrary, colonial government strove to protect Aboriginal peoples from settlers. That's the first thing to say. Second thing to say is that, and by the way, Henry Reynolds, who tends to be on the left in these matters, agrees with that. He also agrees that genocide is not the appropriate word to use to describe what happened in Tasmania. Genocide, according to the UN Convention, has to be intentional. And my view is that genocide, the paradigm of genocide for us is, of course, what happened in Europe in 1939 to 45, Auschwitz. It's state-sponsored, it's systematic, it's designed to annihilate a people, and nothing like that happened in Tasmania. Reynolds and some other historians argue that exterminationist views were predominant among settlers, but according to research I've done, Keith Windschuttle's view that exterminationist attitudes among settlers was only true for a minority, I think is correct. So the situation was that most people, from the colonial governor down to most settlers, wanted to find some other way of settling relations between Europeans and Aboriginals peacefully, and that genocide was not something that most people intended.
You also
And the colonial government strove to avoid it. Yeah.